screens could be of a mobile application, or these could be of an entirely large LED screen. And the web application needs to be able to adjust its layout so that it is displayed properly and the important content is being displayed on the screen so that the user can access it as quickly as possible. So we'll cover all of that and more, and we'll have a hands-on in which we'll take a look at how we can leverage these techniques in order to build a responsive web application, create a responsive web design, or convert an existing design into a responsive web design. So let us take a look at that. But before we begin, we'd like to ask you to like the video, comment down below what else you'd like for us to cover next, and subscribe to our channel and click on the notification bell icon so that you never miss another update. Also, if you would like us to hand you the PPTs that we're using here or any of the code that we're using, please put it into the comment section below. Our team will reach out to you and help you with that. Also, if you have any questions regarding anything that we're covering, put it into the chat box and we are more than happy to help you out there as well. Any of the terms and terminologies that we are discussing in this entire presentation, if they are not clear to you and if they seem a little difficult for you to grasp, don't worry about it. At the end of the presentation, we'll guide you through the resources through which you can learn these things. So with that, let's take a look at the agenda and see what we will be covering and the order in which these things will be covered. So we will begin by taking a look at HTML. HTML is the bedrock of the entire web stack. So how does it work and why is it useful? Then we'll take a look at CSS. CSS is another important aspect. When we're building HTML and CSS applications, we need some way to understand how to use these things. Then comes the types of web design. Responsive web design is definitely a popular one and the most useful one. However, there are different kinds of web designs that are available, and responsive web design is a continuation of the evolution of all these web designs. Then comes responsive web design. The thing that we'll be covering in responsive web design is what responsive web design is and how you can make use of it. Then we'll take a look at why would you want to learn responsive web design, the benefits that it provides and the benefits that it has provided so many different applications. Then we'll take a look at the responsive design elements. In this, we'll take a look at how we can use responsive web design, what are the kinds of things that we need to focus on when building a new layout or when we're transforming an existing layout into a responsive web design. What are the key things that we need to focus on in order to do this as quickly and efficiently as possible? Finally, we'll take a look at a hands-on of responsive web design. In the hands-on, we'll take a look at all the responsive design elements that we have already taken a look at, but we'll try and write some code to understand what it is. As again, if you have any questions regarding the code that we're covering, if it's not clear to you, stick with us till the end and we'll guide you through the resources. Also, if you have any queries regarding the code, you can ask into the chat box or in the comment section. And the code will be made available to you. All you have to do is put it into the comment section that you need access to the code or the presentation itself. So with that, let's begin our journey into learning responsive web design by learning HTML. So HTML is the bedrock of all we'll be covering. Without HTML, there is no web applications, there is no web essentially. HTML is the thing that has made the web possible, and this is from where the entire application stack started, and we started learning new technologies and new things. So let's take a look at what HTML is. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. It is a markup language that is used to define the structure of the content of the web pages. So to understand what HTML is, basically think of how you are writing a document. Whenever you're using Microsoft Word or any other document editing software, the thing that you do is you try to create a structure out of the information that you are presenting. The structure is identified by using different kinds of headings, paragraphs, dropping things into paragraphs, creating some text to be bold, some text to be italicized, some text to be quoted, and so on and so forth. In documents as well, you can also link to other documents or other web pages. Similar structure is followed in HTML. However, here we don't use documents. We use code to define how the document should look like, and we can link to other pages, which is called hypertext. This is why it's called hypertext markup language, because you have so many links to other pages, it almost creates a network of nodes where your page is one node and other pages are other nodes that you can link to. So HTML's basic job is to take text content that you have created, either you're writing a web application, a blog, an instruction manual, cooking manual, whatever it might be, and give certain structure to it so that the person can browse through the entire thing and understand what you're trying to do here. So that's what HTML is all about. If we move ahead, we'll take a look at CSS. Now, CSS is another important part of HTML. However, HTML is the most important part. CSS also provides a lot of important aspects to learning web application and especially responsive web design. CSS plays an important role in laying out content. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. What Cascading Style Sheet means is that it is used to control the styling and the layout of the element on a web page. Whenever you are visiting a web application, when you take a look at the structure of the web page, how things are displayed, where things are placed, how do they look like. For instance, a button on Facebook looks completely different from a button in Twitter. And that is made possible using CSS. Using CSS, what we can do is we can write some code that describes what we want the entire design system to look like, how we want the button to be laid out, where we want a button to be laid out on the entire page, how we want the entire content and the structure should change when the device grows and shrink, and there are many other kinds of things that we can take a look at using CSS. CSS is the primary way that we edit our HTML documents styling information. It's the only way. There are other ways through which you can write code that will be compiled into CSS, and that CSS will then be used to be interpreted by the browser, and the browser will then take care of creating the design and displaying the element on the screen. So as you can see, HTML is for creating the content, CSS is for styling the content. Now, it may be a little difficult to grasp why one would be better over the other. It's not that at all. You don't choose one over the other, you use both of them in conjunction. So use HTML and CSS together in order to build a web page. There are other aspects as well, such as JavaScript and many others, but HTML and CSS form the foundation of the responsive web design that we're talking about. Then let's take a look at types of web design that is available to us. So types of web design will be covering what kind of web design is available to us, how we can use it, and what does it provide us with. Again, in case you have taken a look at anything that we have covered and you have found it a little difficult to grasp, don't worry. We'll guide you through the resources at the end. Stick with us till then. And if you have any questions regarding anything that we have covering, put them into the question box. Also, click on the like button if you like the video. Comment down below what else you would like for us to cover next. Any technology or any new trend that you would like for us to demystify, we'll be more than happy to do that. And if you want access to these presentations, you can put it into the comment section as well. So, and similarly for the code base as well. Also, we hope you have subscribed to our channel and clicked on the notification bell icon. So let's take a look at the types of web design that are available. So there are majorly three types of web design, and these designs have evolved from one from the other. The first is static. This basically means that you design a website's design, you lay everything out, and that's what it's going to be, regardless of the size of the screen that it is being displayed on. If the content is laid out to be for a larger screen and you're viewing it on a smaller screen, then what happens is you get scroll bars. These scroll bars allow you to scroll to the left, right, top, bottom, and allow you to scroll through the entire content. However, this is not very intuitive when it comes to web browsers. When we're using web browsers, we want to scroll in a single direction, which is from top to bottom. However, for static designs, that's not possible. Now, this may look as an oversight, but you have to understand that web started well before mobile web was even a thing, even before when mobile phones were there. So the web started in the 1990s, and when it started, we only had a few dimensions in which our web applications or the content of the web was going to be displayed. So the static design made sense because there was no other problem to be solved. Then came different screen sizes. We started having tablets, mobile phones, and laptop and desktop screens. However, things weren't so bad because even though we had different kinds of design, different screen sizes, they were standardized. So we only had a few options that we had to deal with. So what we would do is we'd create an adaptive site. Now, adaptive sites have different ways of working in different environments. Sometimes they link different kinds of style sheets for mobile, tablet, and desktop displays. So if you are viewing it on a desktop, which is something that you assume by the screen size, then what you do is you link or use the style sheet that you created for desktop. That will lay out everything that it should be laid out on a size that is of the desktop size or above that. If you're viewing it on a tablet, then you obviously have a smaller size and different form factor. In cases like this, a tablet style sheet will be loaded and all the other style sheets will be disregarded. Similarly, for mobile phones, this is what happens. Now, this might seem a little more worrisome than it needs to be because you're creating three different style sheets. However, you're just overriding in the style sheets the things that need to change, like the size and the structure and all of that. Since you only have few options for which to deal with, this was manageable, although not very intuitive, but quite manageable. Then came responsive web design, because nowadays mobile phones can be of different screen sizes, tablets could be of different screen sizes, there's phablets, there are laptop and desktop screens that could be of different screen sizes, ranging from 15 inches to 18 inches to 22 inches and whatever. And now you can always view a web application on a large screen television screen as well. So the size really shifts from being extremely large to extremely small, depending on the user base that you have. So in cases like this, responsive web design comes into play. Here we don't describe what kind of screen sizes we support. What we do is we start with the lowest screen size, which is the mobile phone. It's not always necessarily the case that you start with the mobile phone. You can start with the big screen as well. The point is you need to start somewhere. You start with the mobile application design, then you lay everything out so that it looks great on a mobile device, which is a small screen. From there on, you start increasing the screen size and start filling in content in the spaces that are left blank. This can be done by either adding new content, such as displaying things that were previously hidden in previous designs of mobile applications. These things could be things that are not important, like a calendar widget or something like that. Or you could also do is you can shift the layout and make things look a little different. So instead of it being everything being in one column, you can change a few things to look like they are designed for having two columns in a single row and things like that. Finally, when you come to even a larger screen size and things start getting a bit wonky and you have some empty space that you need to fill, you do the same thing and you keep expanding it till the large size. And that's how you create a responsive web design. Now, for any kind of screen that you take a look at, whenever the web page is loaded and the screen size is determined, the layout kicks in and everything is placed where it should be. And it's easier for the user to browse, and it's easier for the user experience to be good. Now let's take a look at what responsive design is. Hopefully you have understood what was the evolution to responsive design. Basically, we went from completely static websites to completely responsive websites. And the change was difficult because new technologies needed to be created and we needed to think about new ways of solving these problems. However, we have come up with better solutions now, and now we're using responsive web design. But how does that work and why would we want to use this is going to be what we're going to cover next. So let's take a look at responsive web design. So responsive web design is an approach to web design that makes web pages render well on a variety of devices and windows or screen sizes. Suppose you have different screen sizes. You want your web application to look great on all of these screen sizes. If you're a designer, then all you have to do is give user the Photoshop or InDesign mockups of what you are creating. So you can give it these responsive templates for mobile applications, there's the tablet applications and web applications. However, there's a disconnect here that needs to be addressed, which is that applications don't work like that because mobiles are not of the same screen size. There are different mobiles of different screen size, ranging from small screened like 4 or 4.5 inch screen mobile phones to large 6 inch or 6.5 inch screen mobile phones. Content may look differently and flow differently depending on what kind of what kind of design we have chosen and how we are displaying it on the screen and the screen size as well. So if you want to make your content look great on all screen sizes, regardless of how small or how big they are, responsive web design is the approach that you need to take. Now let's take a look at why responsive web design is important. Responsive web design has several advantages. The disadvantages might also be there regarding the responsive web design technologies. The disadvantages may include things like it can be a little complicated, it can be a little difficult to migrate an already existing static website to a dynamic website, especially if the code is written such that it is difficult to change, and changing one thing changes something else entirely. In cases like this, you would have to just completely reimagine the site, which is not a terrible thing, but you still would have to do it. On the other hand, the advantages that many companies have seen when they have taken a look at a responsive web design for their product are these. The first one is mobile traffic. As responsive web design makes our website easier for mobile users to navigate, which increases mobile traffic. companies that have chosen to embrace responsive web design and create a mobile version of the application. For instance, the best example of this would be Facebook. Facebook, before adopting responsive web design, was using already existing desktop web application, and what it used to do is, using the desktop design, it used to create another mobile design or mobile site called m.facebook.com, which would be loaded for users if they are browsing from a mobile phone. Now that worked, however, that site had its own different kind of design system, and it wasn't something that was scaled up or down. If you're from mobile, you're directed to the mobile site. If you're from the web using desktops, then you are directed to the desktop site. And that was how it worked. When responsive web design came into being, what happened is the same design was then implemented in the mobile applications as well. Just the stuff that is not needed, it was removed, such as the chat applications and the sidebars, and only the content feed was something that was left there, and the menu was redesigned so that it looks something that can be used on a mobile screen. This shot up the mobile user experience, and how people used it and how many people used mobile Facebook website. So that is a tremendous advantage when it comes to using mobile applications and targeting the mobile market. Majority of the people who use the internet use it on their mobile phones regularly, so it's a real advantage for companies and to show their products in a mobile web responsive design platforms. Then comes faster pages. A responsive website uses modern performance techniques such as caching and responsive images to display, which helps improve our web pages loading speed. If we want to display certain images and we want to make sure that the screen size or the image size that is being loaded is optimized for the screen size that is available, then we can make use of responsive web design as well. For instance, if we have a website that is going to be viewed on a large 1080p or ultra HD monitor, we need to add images that are of high resolution. But if you are using a mobile web browser such as Chrome for mobile to browse through the entire web page, and you end up downloading a 4 megabyte image, which may or may not hamper the experience of your viewing the user interface, because images take time to load and parse, that would take a lot of time, and that would decrease your loading speed. However, if you could have discerned that these two platforms are different and you can provide different images for them to be used, then this would be really important. So responsive design allows you to do that. Then comes lower bouncing rate. So a responsive and optimized mobile site provides a much better user experience for the visitor. Bounce rates basically means that the user tries to load your website, doesn't like the design, and just bounces or stops viewing your product and moves on to some other product. It reduces the bounce rates because it makes your application more attractive and more easy to use for the users. Many users who don't want to scroll through the entire pages because it's a little difficult will move on to some other page that has already implemented responsive design. Then comes higher conversion rates. Having a single secure website that looks professional on all platforms makes users less likely to get frustrated and turn to your competitors. So, for instance, if you are trying to build an application that is inside a competitive market, such as, let's say, investment, and you're trying to build a dashboard for that application, many people try to use these dashboards on a mobile application because they are running to from and to meetings. They don't have time to open up laptops, boot up the entire operating system, open up the Chrome browser or any browser that they have available, go to the website, sign in, and so on and so forth. What they want to do is just want to open up a browser in the browser session in their mobile phone, automatically log into your website, and get started with the work that they want to do. Now, in cases like this, if your website is not that professional and difficult to work with, such as having scroll bars, you have to scroll all the way here and there. The font size is really small in some places, really large in some other places. As you can imagine, that's a very frustrating experience for the user. And the user is more than likely going to turn to your competitor and go and use their product. So in order to remove this discrepancy, responsive web design helps greatly. Then comes improved SEO. SEO stands for search engine optimization. Responsive web design is becoming as important to search engine optimization as quality content. If you're working with quality content and you want your users to be able to see them, if you have a responsive web design, more people are going to go to your website, because we have already discussed lower bounce rates and higher conversion rates. That means more traffic is going to flow through your systems, and Google will notice that, or any search engine will notice that, and it will index your page very well. So it leads to improved SEO as well. And there are many other advantages as well. Certain disadvantages are there, which is you have to learn a new design system. It's not very difficult, but you still have to do that. You have to convert already existing pages. There's no tool that you can run in order to just convert one page from one kind of design system to another. There's a whole process that needs to go through but you don't have to worry about that at all because the advantages far outweigh the disadvantages. Now let's take a look at responsive design elements. Responsive design has elements such as viewport, images, text, and media queries. Now, what are these elements? How are they useful? And how does they help you? Let's take a look at that. So, a viewport is basically just a description of how big your screen is, right? So, for instance, a viewport is basically how wide and what the width and height of your screen or the real estate that is available for the web application to show itself. That's basically what a viewport is. Now, using a viewport, we can tell whether a web browser is a rendering engine renders elements based on device width. So basically, we can tell the web browser that, look, we want this to be optimized for a mobile experience as well. So whatever the view size is, just make sure my application adapts to that. And the web browser understands this because they have a viewport capability, and they'll take a look at that, understand the viewport that is available, and shrink or scale your content depending on how your website is available for them to use. We'll take a look at that in the hands-on as well. Also, if you didn't understand what that means, just stick with the end and we'll guide you through some of the resources as well. In case you have any questions regarding anything that we're covering, put them into the chat box. We like to have a discussion that is useful for you. So please put your questions into the chat box. Any questions that you have regarding the presentation, or if you want access to the presentation and the code base, put that into the comment box. Also comment down below what else you would like for us to cover next, and click on the like button if you like the video, and subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so already. So now that we're done with viewport, let's take a look at images. Responsive images are images that scale nicely to fit any browser. We can do it by having different sized images for different screens. Suppose you have three images for you. One optimized for mobile site, one optimized for tablet size, and one optimized for large screen systems, such as television screens, monitors, and whatever. What you can do here is you can take a look at all of these, use them in your design, use them in your application, and instruct the browser to load certain images based on certain screen sizes. So you can say if the width of the viewport that my image is being displayed on is less than 700 pixels, then show this image which is less than 700 pixels. So that way you don't end up loading an image that will have no perceivable impact to the user's experience, but will have a great impact on the bandwidth that it ends up using for the user. Also, doing this, make sure that your application is responsive, loads content faster, and then you can serve the user quickly and more efficiently. Then comes text. Text is the primary way that any web application conveys any kind of information to the user. The text needs to change with the height and the width of the device to accommodate for lesser space. Suppose I have a large screen web application that is being displayed on a large screen, but now I shrink the browser a little to make space for some other applications as well to be displayed right alongside it. I want the text to be able to shift to that as well. I don't want scroll bars to appear in which I would have to scroll to left or right to make the person see what I'm trying to make them see. I just want the text to be able to shrink based on the size that's available to them. And responsive text allows us to do that as well. Finally comes media queries. In case you're not familiar, media queries are something that you can define in the style sheets or CSS styles for applying certain styles to certain viewport size. So if you are on a mobile site, I want the background to be red. If I'm on the tablet size, I want the background to be green. If I'm on the desktop site, I want the background to be white. That's the kind of style sheets, that's the kind of styling that you can apply on a web application or web page using CSS media queries. Media queries allow you to do that, and you can even define a range of sizes so in order to make sure that it is only applied for a size of screen that is available in a particular range. So with that, we have covered everything that we wanted to cover in the theory element. Hopefully everything was informative and nothing was too difficult for you to understand. The topics that we have covered right now, which are the responsive design elements of the responsive design framework, are the things that we're going to cover in code now. This is going to be what we're going to cover in our hands-on or on demo in responsive web design. So let's take a look at that. So now let's try and take a look at what responsive web design is and how you can implement it in the code. Alright guys, so now let's take a look at the hands-on. So for the hands-on, all we have is just some text and some images inside an HTML file, and this is what the output looks like. That's an image, there's some text. Now, if I want to take a look at how it looks on smaller screen size devices, instead of opening it up inside a browser that is running inside a mobile device, I can just click on inspect by right clicking on the browser and then click on this button. If I click on this button, then it will toggle this view, and from the drop down here, I have to select responsive. You can do it in any Chrome browser or many of the browsers that are based on Chromium. After doing this, if I take a look at this is what the text looks like, this is what the image looks like. It shrinks up to a certain point, but after that the proportions go off and the text starts becoming really large and the image becomes really small. So this is where meta viewport comes into play. If I type meta and Visual Studio Code gives me a lot of free code options. So I save this, type this up, go back and refresh. And now as you can see, the browser and the image size is maintained. So the text is shrunk, but it works, and the size of the text is maintained. Doesn't matter how small or big the screen size is, the text size is going to be the same as I want it to be. So that's how viewport works. Viewport allows you to define how you want your browser's rendering engine to work depending on the kind of text and screen size available to you. Now, after the viewport tag, our next thing to take a look at is responsive images. And we're taking these things in order of how we discuss them. So I'll just close them all off. Meta viewport tag is going to be there still. And now I'll just open up the browse body tag. Here I'm going to write another tag called the source tag. Let me just expand it and I will close it up. So for the source tag to work, all we have to do is type source. That's the first thing. Now inside these tags, what we can do is, or no, not the source tag, sorry, the picture tag is going to be the picture. Inside the picture tag, we're going to type the source tag, and inside the source tag, we are going to give a source set. So what happens here is that we can now inside the picture tag define different screen sizes and different images to load when the screen sizes are different. For instance, I have an image. I'm going to just mention it here, and it's called small dot, and if you take a look at this, small dot jpg. So I have the image here, I have linked it, and now what I can do is I can give a media rule. Media rule basically means it tells it how wide the screen should be for this image to be displayed, or how small the screen should be. So I want the max width to be 600 pixels. Now similarly, what I want here is for the source set to, instead of being showing small.jpg, I want to show big.jpg. And here the max width is, you can name it anything you want. I'm going to call it 1600 pixels. Now I have saved this. Another thing that you have to do is, what if your browser doesn't support this source tag, or older browsers don't support it? So in order to make sure that everything works, I'll just type big.jpg here as well, and all text will be image. Save this, go back to the browser, refresh, and right now it's showing small.jpg because the size is small. As you can see, the size here is increasing. So when I increase the size beyond 600 pixels, as you can see, the image changes, and now I have this. Now I have just used two arbitrary images. You can, for instance, choose an image of lower size. For instance, instead of using a high quality image, you can maybe use a medium quality image so that the browser doesn't have to download all the images that it doesn't need. So that's another way. Now let's take a look at text. Now picture, source, and all of these tags are available in HTML5. HTML4, it may or may not be available depending on how it works. And all of this is based on the browser that you're using. So if you're using an older version of a browser, or your customers are using an older version of a browser, then this might not work. So that's why we have added the image tag here as well. This is a fallback. So if both of these don't work, just show this image and be done with it. Now that was to ensure backwards compatibility. Now it's time to take a look at text. Now to take a look at text, all we have to do is we have to firstly define a few things. So h1, and we're going to type h1 text. Now this is going to be the first level heading, and we can have multiple paragraphs. So we can have paragraph 1, and I can have paragraph 2 and paragraph 3. If I save this, go back and refresh, as you can see that's the text, but even though I shrink or expand, it doesn't change the size of the text. All it does is that it forces the content to go down the screen. That's all. That may or may not be what you want. So in cases like this, what I like to do is I like to specify a font size. Now you can do it in CSS styles, but I'm just going to be doing it here. So it's going to be quite easy. Just use the style attribute here, font size, and the unit is going to be view height, and I'll show you view width. Sorry, and I'll show you how that works. So it's going to be 8 view width, and I'm going to apply similar styling to all of the others. Here instead of 8, it's going to be 5, and it's going to be 3. Now if I save this and if I go back, now the text will look a little bit different. But as I shrink, as you can see, all the text that had the view width uh, uh, view width as the font size applied to it is going to shrink and expand. The last paragraph didn't have that, so it's not either shrinking or expanding as I'm reshaping the browser. That's a problem. So if you want to use responsive text, you have to use view width as one of the units. There are other units available as well, such as M or root M's or whatever. You can take a look at all the resources available, and we'll guide you through some of those. Also, if you want the code that I'm writing for you to play with, you can put it into the comment section below, and our team will reach out to you. Also, click on the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Now that that's done, let's take a look at the final thing that we had to take a look at, which was media queries. So let me first create a style tag in my head. Here, I'll just give a background color to body, and the background color is going to be, that's it. So if I go back and if I refresh, this is what the background looks like. It's a very dark shade of gray. Now that works, but let's say that I want the background color to change when I am displaying it on a lower screen size. Maybe the lower resolution makes certain elements to look really difficult to read, and if we change just the background color from dark gray to light gray, it becomes more readable. So in order to do this, I have to use again the media queries, and to do this I have to write at media, then I have to write screen, and at media screen, and then I have to write and here is where I describe how I want this to pack. So 700 pixels is going to be our cutoff point, and I want it to be the max width. So as long as the width is 700 pixels or lower, we are going to have the body's background color to be a very light shade of gray. And let me just change this as well. Save this, go back, refresh. So right now the width is 940 pixels. If I shrink it down to 700, then it looks like this. As soon as I move it a pixel above that, the color changes. So that's how media queries work. Again, as you can see, there's a range of possibilities of how you can deal with this, but that's essentially how media queries function at the bottom. So with that, we've come to the end of the session. Hopefully this has been informative. As mentioned before, any questions that you have, you can put them into the chat box, and we're here to help you out. If you want, you can put the questions into the comment box there as well. Click on the like button, click on the subscribe button, and press the notification bell icon so that you never miss another update. If you would like for us to cover something else other than what we have covered, then put that into the comment box and we'll take that suggestion and we'll make a video out of that. And if you have any further queries regarding the code or the PPTs, and if you want access to them, put that into the comment box as well, and like the video if you liked it. Now let's take a look at some resources that can help you out with learning these things.